I knew that was bad on the color.
Hello, this is Charles Hoskinson broadcasting live from warm, sunny Colorado. Always warm, always sunny, sometimes Colorado. And I'm here with a special guest star who's in town for executive meetings.
Hello, I am Tamara Hassan, president of I/O.
And today is Sunday, April 2nd, 2023. So a lot of cool things have been happening recently. We are right in the thick of things with moving Cardano along. SIP 1694 is really starting to shape up. There's a lot of community workshops that are getting started. We just had our first community Zoom call. I think more than 50, 60 people showed up for that, in addition to the original people who were in the workshop that we had here in Colorado. A lot of community workshops are going to be held in person across the world throughout the coming months. And then in July in Edinburgh, we'll have the other side of the bookshelf, the other bookend, which will be the finalizing workshop to get the remaining parameters in. And a lot of great development work as well. Version 8 of the node is under construction. There's about 8 months of backlog. That's Sergey and Vitaly, and others have been gradually pulling their way through. And with any luck, that should be pushed to pre-prod soon. So we're real excited about that because that's going to be the foundation upon which 1694 would get implemented for testing so that people can actually see what it means to be a DREP, and similar to the experience we had with the incentivized testnet. So I'm real excited about that. We're starting to put some Tiger teams together to look at some very specific issues. That's going to be led by the newest VP of delivery here, Billy, who we love and admire. He's from Kentucky, good kid, and real smart. And he's got a great team with him. And what we're going to do is take a look at some areas that people have been complaining about for quite some time, whether it be DB Sync or the node-to-node interface, or perhaps accelerating certain things like tiered pricing, for example, and basically we're just triaging and going down. So we're real excited to see this new approach, and we're pretty happy about it. A lot of other cool, interesting things. Hydra finally reached mainnet, and people have been playing around with it. We launched Hydra on mainnet. Very first thing that you guys drew with Hydra on mainnet was a penis. Thank you very much. That was exciting. Nothing like 15 months of hardcore engineering work to get a dick drawn in pixel by pixel. By the way, every pixel was a transaction. So that is a high transaction penis.
Yeah.
We learned a lot about that. Now, as you know, AMAs aren't just about Cardano. They're about my life and the things that I'm interested in. And when I have special guest stars, it's about their life and the things that they're interested in. So nothing is off limits. This is the coolest device I think I've ever purchased. This right here is a Roxiva unit. They are not cheap. They're about $5,000. It's because it's a medical device. It's not a little play device. And it's actually for audio and visual entrainment. So Tam and I were just using it. And we've been testing it for the past week. So how would you describe it?
It depends on what setting it's on. So it's supposed to simulate, that has a setting for DMT, which I've never done. So it can simulate like a DMT trip, an LSD trip. It kind of feels like a kaleidoscope on your face, and it kind of puts you in another world. You have headphones on when you're doing it, and it puts you in another world. You see like tracers, you see things, you just see patterns, many, many patterns. So this one we just did was for anxiety. It has like, how many settings does it have? Maybe like
there's probably 200 programs on it.
Is there 200? Okay. So it just kind of puts you in a new state of mind, sort of like meditation, but with light therapy and patterns. And it kind of retoggles your mind and the chemicals in your mind and the neurons in your mind. So we're not sure how safe it is yet. So we're only doing 6 minutes. Right? Everybody's just doing 6 minutes right now. We did it on our legal team this week as well. They really loved it. And
so this is powerful medicine requires powerful respect. So this is a powerful device. And you have to be careful with it. But audio and visual entrainment have been studied in cognitive neuroscience for a very long time. And there's lots of really cool things you can do. So basically the device is held about yay far from the face. Mm-hmm. You close your eyes. sit back, you relax, you put some headphones on, and it flashes. And if people are observing you, it looks like it's just flashing white light, but you're seeing patterns and geometry and colors, and you go on a journey. So there's kind of two different directions that this device is intended for. One is more in the anti-anxiety, focus, and performance enhancement realm. So we term that the meditative area. And the other is actually for therapy and for entertainment. So it can knock you, if you use it long enough, the right settings, into a kind of a pseudo psychedelic state, similar to what a psilocybin trip would be, or a DMT trip would be. But the difference between chemicals in this device is actually it has an on and off switch. So after you finish the routine, you come back, and so far it seems to be pretty instant. Now, that said, it's one of those things where you just have to study it. So, what if you have epilepsy? What if you have neurological problems? What if you have schizophrenia? Yeah. This is where we're not exactly sure. So I've sent this research thread up to my clinic in Wyoming, and we're going to spend some time playing around with it. And throughout the coming months, we'll learn more about it. But what is really interesting is that I do believe that it has a profound impact on your brainwaves. And so one of the first things we're going to do when we start playing around with this is we're going to take a look at EEG. And we're going to actually do an EEG pre and during and post, and measure it for several people. And then we'll try to get a sense of what's happening with your brainwaves. Another thing that we're probably going to do is look at cognitive scoring and things that are intended to enhance. We can do a pre and post with the unit and see what effects it has on people. So very exciting, but I wouldn't recommend you use it at the moment because we haven't really dug deep into the safety protocols and gotten a full understanding of how it works under the hood. But there's a lot of great science. Visual and audio entrainment's been around, as I've mentioned, for quite some time. It's really been a secret hidden gem. And the Roxiva is the first consumer device, pseudo-consumer device, because it's at the $5,000 price point that I've seen. So, it's just an area of interest that we have. And the power of having a clinic is that you have all these physicians and scientists floating around, and it makes it actually quite straightforward and easy for us to take these devices and actually test them. Over time, we'll be able to actually test them at a very significant level. Like, for example, with a SPECT scan and look at blood flow through the brain with an MRI and actually take a look at the structures of the brain, in addition to EEG studies and qualitative, quantitative assessments.
So it's also supposed to be used to, like psychedelics, to cure depression, right? And other sort of people with OCD. Is that what it's also intended, without actually having to take those drugs or mushrooms? Or
yeah, you have to be careful with using words like cure, but
not cure, but yeah.
It's so even with transcranial magnetic stimulation, which is one of the gold standards of an alternative for SSRI therapy, which is FDA approved, when primary therapies fail, the curative rate is about a third. So I wouldn't suspect this device would have a high curative rate, but it could mirror what we've seen with ecstasy and the MDMA trials that were actually quite breakthrough and transformative.
And peyote, right? The form of peyote, MDMA.
Well,
ecstasy.
MDMA is the first one to go through an actual placebo-controlled double-blind clinical trial, and I don't believe peyote has gone through the same level of rigor. However, there's a common belief that it does, and psilocybin has as well gone through pretty significant trials at Johns Hopkins under Roland Griffiths. If you're planning on attending MAPS, which is the big psychedelic conference for research in psychedelics, I will be there. It's towards the end of June here in Denver, Colorado, and actually Roxiva has a booth. So we're going to definitely play around with their latest and greatest technology, and that's going to be a lot of fun. Okay, so first question.
I can't read that.
Sign me up. All right, what do we got here? How do you spell it? It is Roxiva, and I will actually give you guys a link to the website here if you're interested. By the way, I have no commercial relationship with Roxiva, not paid by them, bought this with my own money. It's just a cool, interesting device. Here we go. This is actually one you did. Have you seen the recent Lex interviews with Sam and Eliezer, Charles? I'd love to get your take on AGI and how we can make it safe, or is extinction almost a certainty at this point? Actually, you just watched the Sam interview.
The Sam Harris?
No, Sam Altman.
Oh, Sam Altman. I think he just did Sam Harris as well. Well, there's a lot of controversy related to how Sam is proceeding. And Eliezer, I watched the beginning of it. He's a very, very smart guy, very hostile guy. Actually, you know how Les always does the thing where you have to change it and actually say it from the other person's perspective. What does he call that? Like, not straw manning, but
steel manning.
Yeah, steel manning. He refused to steel man something with Lex. He's like, I think you will do that incorrectly. Nobody can understand what I think. You've not actually ever experienced what I think. It was the first time that I've ever seen somebody challenge Lex on steel manning, which was very funny. And Lex took it like a champ. Yeah, so Sam, I don't know. My intuition with Sam is that I think he thinks he means well right now. And that's like, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So I think he thinks he's doing the right thing right now, but I feel like he's slowly going to not be doing the right thing. I think that he's going to take it a little bit too far. It's not really open anymore, so he should probably change it to closed. I think even Eliezer or somebody else mentioned that
Closed
as well.
AI.
Well, because it is kind of closed now. They're not sharing any of the back end or the details about that. So it's effectively not open AI. So I think he should be a little bit more honest about that. So yeah, I think he meant well, but I think it's transitioning into something that might be a little bit more dangerous. I do agree with the letter that has been written.
And that's the follow-up question, actually.
What do you think of the CEO's letters? Yeah, so Imad is somebody I've been following, Imad Mostik. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce his last name. So I've watched a couple of videos. Now, I don't think he was on Lex, or maybe he was on Lex, but I kind of like his approach or how he thinks about it. I sort of trust his being slow and deliberate about the advancement of AI. He thinks about AI too, because he has his own company as well. He thinks about AI on the sort of country level. So his long-term vision is that each country will even have its own data set and its own.
Is the Diffusion AI guy?
I don't think it's called Diffusion AI, but I can't remember the name of his company.
The Indian guy?
Yeah, the Indian guy.
Yeah, that's Diffusion.
Is it?
Stability.
Stability, yeah, that's it. Stability.
Stability Diffusion. There's some diffusion in there. Yeah, he's great.
For some reason, yeah, like when I watched him a while ago, when I watched him and his what he's working on and just his perspective, I was just a lot more comfortable with his perspective than what Sam is sort of proceeding with right now. So yeah, I fully support the letter. I think in anything, and I've been saying it with blockchain as well, because you have to relate everything. Well, you don't have to relate everything to blockchain, but all these really advanced technologies where you don't know, what could happen, especially as they affect humanity as a whole. I've been a big advocate since the beginning of slowing down to speed up and actually thinking around the problem. I don't agree with opening AI all the way. Like, just with any open source software, I believe that there are degrees in which you eventually completely open source it. I do agree that it's a little bit too complicated to completely open source it, obviously, to the world, but I do agree that they should slow down and actually think about the implications of what they're building now, considering GPT-4 is this powerful. The thing I keep hearing, even from Eliezer and everybody, is like just how astounded they are with how advanced it already is.
Right.
Nobody could have predicted, or they did not predict that. So they all seem a little bit like nobody predicted that. So that's when you don't predict something like that, you do have to slow down and actually think about it. Plus, I mean, it was meant to be run by OpenAI. Was meant to be run by a foundation.
Supposed to be a not-for-profit.
It's supposed to be a not-for-profit. Yeah,
because they like money.
But that's ridiculous though. So you give money to a not-for-profit, as Elon did and others, and then they all of a sudden turn it into, it's not even open coring it, really.
Yeah, it's a commercial entity,
right? Yeah. That's not traditional open coring.
There's some open source components that are still there. Yeah, and so I was at with you actually over at the Milken Institute last year at Eric Schmidt's house for his birthday party, and we had a lovely lunch. And I talked to Eric and I said, Eric, what's going to be like the big thing the next 5 years? And he said, large language models, AI is going to be a huge deal. And we keep saying it, but this is going to be the decade where it gets really good. And actually, I just saw a paper this morning that I have to read, but the paper talks about using GPT to train GPT. It turns out that even with no new model, no new training model, you can use GPT to train GPT, and you can get great results from it. So the problem is that recursive optimization means that there's a very good chance that GPT-4 can make GPT 4.5, and GPT 4.5 with a
Right.
new model can make GPT-5. And it'll see exponential improvement in its capabilities. So right now, GPT-4 is kind of a pretty good junior programmer, not such a good average programmer, and a terrible expert level programmer. GPT-5 will be an exceptional entry level programmer, pretty good average programmer, poor good programmer. GPT-6 will be exceptional throughout to a superhuman level, the best developer you've ever met in your entire career for every programming language at the same time. So I think there's going to be a tremendous centaur effect where when you pair people together with GPT, basically their productivity goes up exponentially. In fact, I've already used this in my own personal life. So this next question we have here, which Charles, I know you're into a few spaces with other ventures such as healthcare. My question for you is, any of your non-crypto ventures use Cardano blockchain in any way? Well, one of my companies is a construction company. I set it up because the cost of construction is so incredibly high. So we have a master carpenter, an HVAC guy, just got a concrete foreman. We got a Class A contractor, we got an architect. We pulled all these trades together so that we can internally do construction because the cost per square foot is so high to do anything these days. But one of the things we've been looking at is actually more sustainable materials and stronger, better, environmentally friendly materials to replace older materials. For example, Portland cement is a key ingredient in concrete. Turns out you can use geopolymers. And actually, the guy who discovered this was trying to figure out how they built the pyramids. And he's thinking maybe they had some clever way of actually making concrete, and they poured the blocks as opposed to cut them and move them, which would make so much more sense. And he stumbled upon a recipe for a much better type of concrete, which you can use slag from steel production. You can use stuff from sand. You can use stuff from fly ash, and you put it in. So anyway, we said, well, why don't we use GPT-4 and ask, okay, for each of these building categories, drywall, your framing, your insulation, can we create a list of natural alternatives or environmentally friendly alternatives and rate them in order of cost and strength and accessibility and just build a table? Well, GPT-4, working with my EA, he was able to do it in 20 minutes and create this beautiful table that's like 26 different items. We were looking at like magnesium oxide drywall, and it's super strong, super incredible. We're looking at the Aircrete as an insulating spray foam for these types of things. So now I can take that and put it into Ask Wonder and have a much more specific directed research report written, and I can get a very detailed report that I can then take and put it back into GPT-4 and repeat the cycle a few times.
That's amazing.
And just in a period of a week or two, you can do Gartner level research and really get a sampling of the entire market space. Now, that's just an absolutely remarkable thing. And to be able to just keep asking follow-on questions, like once you've identified the material that you like, you probably need to identify the supply chain for it and the specialized training to use it. Like if we're using Aircrete spray foam insulation, well, then we need to buy a machine to do it, source the materials for it, train people on how to do that. Who, when, where, how, what, these basic questions. Boom, you just get it almost instantly. And that's normally weeks or months worth of research or subject matter expertise. And you can assign an untrained person, and within a very short period of time, they can do that. Now, the question is, are we using blockchain in my other ventures? Absolutely. So in the medical world, one of the things that we're looking at is private information, private data. So at some point, I would like for the electronic health record system that we're using to be able to find a way to mine and monetize that data, because we're collecting enormous amounts of information. We have genomic data, we have large population chronic care groups that are coming together. And so it'd be a lot of fun to say, can we anonymize it using things like Midnight technology, and then basically create a system where people can query it and have a bat style model for these types of things. So that's one thing we've been looking into. Another venture I have, which is for bioluminescent plants, we're exploring right now Can we engineer the plants to have deep fibrous root systems that absorb enormous amounts of carbon, kind of like what bamboo does? 40% of all of its carbon is actually underground with bamboo. It's amazing. So if that's the case, then anytime somebody plants one of these glow-in-the-dark plants, you're also actually generating enormous carbon negative plays. You're getting carbon credits. So the trading system, the tracking system, the representation of carbon, that would be a really fun thing to put on.
They still
Cardano.
haven't solved how you get the carbon and the analysis from it physically, whether it's bamboo or anything else, onto the blockchain and making sure that that's verifiable. So do you have a component that's going to be sort of game changing in that way?
Yeah, so there's two components to it. One is an average plant, in its growth cycle will produce an average amount of carbon store. So you can measure that, and then when you ship it, you assume it. But then you also have to have a supply chain and know, are they still alive? Are they still in circulation? Because these are genetically modified organisms, I think it's not optional. We're going to have a pretty robust supply chain system where we actually have a pretty good idea where every one of these organisms happens to be and if they're still alive or not. Just so that you can do retrospectives with environmental protection agencies around the world to verify that these species are not interacting in a negative way with the environment. So the supply chain component, it needs to be fraud-free and auditable. And the carbon component, the carbon credit component for it needs to be fraud-free and auditable. So in both cases, I think there's definitely a blockchain layer that could be put on, but it's a bit premature at the moment. I'd say that would be an endeavor around 2025 to 2027, because there's just so many things that have to be figured out for it. Now, that said, you can do a boatload of IoT stuff. They have these nanotechnologies. They're like the size of a grain of rice that you actually can put into the seeds of the plant. When the plant grows up, it makes your plants like NFC enabled.
That's interesting.
And then you can just go through a field with a drone or something like that. You can audit and periodically check things. You can do a lot of stuff. That
solves the supply chain problem completely.
Yeah, and so there's really a lot of cool stuff with nano sensors in the IoT space. And Cardano isn't quite ready to enter the IoT side of the world, but I do believe as we close out the decade, that's going to be a fun thing to explore. So I always try to find a way to really dig into and find out if there's a sensible blockchain component. And it comes down to usually transparency, trust brokering, auditability, the desire for time stamping, and also fidelity. Blockchain accounting is another area. At some point, I'd love for all of our books to be blockchain verified, so that especially as I continue to incorporate more businesses, I'm going to have a situation where I'm like Samsung, where IO actually has like 14 sets of books, because every one of the subsidiaries has its own book. And so it'd be really nice to have triple entry accounting with real-time continuous auditing. So that's a business use case for that.
But the tricky one with the medical world, it's the same with the financial industry, with open banking, because banking is like one of the most closed, non-transparent, high security with your data industries. And they're finally opening up, right, to allow open banking, sort of, not with blockchain yet, but with other financial providers that are within their ecosystem. So the medical world, how do you think they're going to deal? Like, who's going to be the first one? Who would you approach in the medical field to be able to open up? Because everything's under HIPAA, right? Like, who do you approach first to say, okay, your data is going to be secure. It's going to go into this bank without releasing any PI information into this bank of information. Somebody's going to act upon that information, which should be open source to all doctors and any research medical institutions as well, so that they can come up with more advanced treatments, right? That's the purpose of that.
Well, no, it has economic agency. So I wouldn't argue. I mean, you're like stealing money from people. The patients own that data. The providers own that data. They had to spend money to aggregate it. To say that they have to give it away for free is like saying you have to give away all your work for free. I think that there needs to be economic agency for it. Marketplace is the forum, and then actually by having a marketplace, it'll create far more access.
Yeah.
If you give it away for free, then it's a public good, and nobody wants to format it properly. The good news is that the vast majority of medical data is starting to aggregate amongst a collection of EHRs. So Athena, Epic, and there's a collection of others. They basically have a monopoly in this area. And then there's a long tail of small-scale EHRs that are usually outpatient. So, for example, we have all these doctors that reach out to us. We say, hey, you want to work for us? Oh, no, but I want to sell you an EHR. We're like, come on, man. So we just see that all the time. But for the most part, it's Athena, Epic, and these other really big providers. Open Vista was one the military used, but I guess they're pivoting off of that. And once you've integrated, then it's as simple as basically clicking a box to liberate the medical data. There's still a lot of issues in the coding for medical records and getting all of that sorted out.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, even though there are standard formats to translate between these different EHRs, migrating from one to another is actually a very substantial thing. And they do this on purpose because they don't want to make it easy to leave and migrate. But in some cases, you have to manually create profiles. So if we were to leave, let's say, Athena and go to Epic, or Epic to Athena, you'd have to migrate thousands of patients, and it would take months to do that migration. So unfortunately, that is something that would get in the way of good data mining and being able to ask policy-directed questions. So if you're a Department of Health and you say, how many people with asthma over the age of 50 who also have polycystic ovarian disease or something like that, and who are taking hormone replacement, had a bad outcome with COVID. That's maybe a question for some reason you want to ask as a public health official. Well, to actually be able to answer a question like that is still quite difficult.
Because they're not the data sets aren't interoperable between these companies. And
they've made enormous progress in the last 10 years, but it's still a super hard problem because nobody has a strong incentive to work with each other. And they're trying to. I mean, it's just like there's open banking in the banking world, and ISO 222 and these other things. ISO, what's the financial ISO?
You're close. It's 20122 or something like that.
Could be. Yeah. But one of the financial ISOs, they're trying real hard to pull these things together, but it's still not quite where it needs to be. And usually it takes 10, 20 years to see that. Okay. What is an actual good personal DNA service with actual privacy? Nebula.
Huh.
How about that? Yeah, but do we really want to feed the carbon fear hysteria? Whether you like it or not, it's there. And, I'm a capitalist. If it's there, I'm going to make money from it.
It's very honest answer.
Charles is copying VeChain. No, we're inspired by VeChain. VeChain is a very famous supply chain cryptocurrency with a very active community. Your mouse tweet, the stem cells is the juice. Actually, they were disrupting the epigenome, and the one that they disrupted the epigenome with badly damaged the mouse. And so the juice actually caused aging. So it wasn't the case that they were let natural aging. They did one with accelerated aging. The other one was the natural control. Who is this woman, and who is she? So
and who is she?
Tam, who is she? Is you?
I am me. I am Tam.
Why don't you talk a little bit about your background?
Oh my gosh, my background is quite varied. I started as a political scientist, so I've sort of always had this wanting to question the systems. So I did a specialist degree in political science, and then I realized the political system was a little too corrupt for me. I worked for the government for one day. I was very upset that they didn't actually do anything. They actually told me I was working too hard and that I needed to slow down because it was making them all look bad. And that was the moment. And again, I didn't get this from my parents. I don't know how I got this, but that was the moment I was like, well, this is not very efficient. So I just took a turn and I went into acting, believe it or not. I went into theater in New York, and I moved to New York and studied that. And I recommend acting to folks. It's like therapy. It turns you inside out and you learn a lot of stuff about you. And then I became an audio engineer. And then I went to work in the Middle East.
By the way, when she said she went into acting briefly, she was actually in Hollywood movies like Boyhood and Tree of Life, Ethan Hawke's Girlfriend, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I got into the movies, and they wanted me to keep
Has
going.
An IMDb profile.
Yeah, but I didn't like the films because it was like it's like play acting. You're acting like it's playtime, and I didn't want to have playtime for the rest of my life. And I just thought it was very strange to act like somebody else for the rest of my life because my life was so much more interesting. Then I became an audio engineer, which I love. That's probably my biggest passion, extracurricularly, is audio engineering. So I became an audio engineer for a while, and then I moved to the Middle East, and I helped build an architecture firm. So in the middle of Qatar, I helped build an architecture firm out there. And then I went to law school, and I got into crypto. I got into crypto very early on. That's where Charles and I met. We met in a long time ago. So before Ethereum even launched, that's where I met Charles. I was there in Toronto, and that's when it all just kind of made sense for me. I always tell the story of there was a Bitcoin ATM. I had my phone. I had my Bitcoin wallet. That was one of the first wallets. If nobody knows what a Bitcoin wallet is, I have no idea how to get into that, by the way, now. But that password is long gone. I put the thing in, the QR code, my $20, and then I got my first Bitcoin. So honestly, it was at that point in time, I just knew. I saw sort of the future and where it was all going. I was around Vitalik at the time and all these guys. That's when I met Charles and just kind of went into the blockchain space.
So yeah, what do you do for IO?
Full circle, full gear. What do I do for IO? I am the president of IO.
What's that mean?
It is a glorified role. It means I'm like the mini CEO. So Charles tells people what to do, and I'm under him actually making sure that what he does is implemented. That was half a joke. So I started as culture officer in a company. Culture is very important. It touches all aspects of the business. And then I moved into HR because we needed to grow our company on the people side. So I was the HR director for a while. People are everything in a company. And then I moved into becoming the chief of staff, actually, which is the coolest job ever. And then we were doing a big company transformation, and we're working with some consultants. And they recommended that I actually transition into the president. And the president, all the executives report to me. I report to Charles. And I just sort of work with the COO and run the day-to-day business of IO.
And that's what frees me up to be able to work on 6 companies at the same time.
Yeah.
So I take a more strategic role and only occasionally get involved on execution operations where and when it makes sense. For example, I'm still heavily involved on the Cardano side, still heavily involved in new product development like Midnight. But then a lot of other ongoing concerns can actually be done through the normal C-suite. So you have this beautiful delegation inside the system, and it's actually starting to work really well. There's still a lot of bugs in it and kinks in it, and we're learning.
Oh, it's amazing
as
now.
we go.
So I'm trying to build one of the most amazing companies in the world that is agile, that does ecosystem product development, that has culture at its heart. So we really actually actively, intuitively foster culture, and whatever that means. I mean, there's so many different parts of culture. And so this transition this year is just finishing a lot of our products. A lot of people don't know how many products we have, but we have a ton of products that we're actually working on day to day. So this year is really about finishing all those products. As a lot of you guys know, we're spinning out companies as well. So I'm responsible for spinning out those companies and making sure that they have the right management, the right leadership, and inherit the right DNA from parent co. So it's a hub and spoke model. And then just kind of see what they don't need to inherit and then continuously improve and optimize the entire system. So I see the constellation of IO as the hub and its subsidiaries sort of as an ecosystem itself, where you're constantly improving the ecosystem. The hub is sort of like the leader or the enabler of the rest of them, and you're continuously improving all of your kind of related entities, because each entity that we have, and some are wholly owned, some are partially owned, some are JVs.
Yeah, like the bioluminescent plant is a joint venture between us and the Colossal guys.
Yeah. So the cool part is that you actually have to, I love this stuff. Like I love thinking around governance period, but governance of a corporate system. So the cool part is you have to really think about incentives as well. Like how do you get these different companies to work with each other as well? How do you incentivize them? And you can't impose anything on somebody. You have to incentivize productive behavior. So I think a lot about incentives and how this entire orbit, or we're calling it the orbit model, how this entire orbit and constellation of companies works together. And that's what I'm doing. So I'm working with Charles. I was actually working on the strategy right before we got on here. So I'm helping to write.
We did the Roxiva.
Oh yes, we did that. And then I was working on the corporate strategy for the company. And yeah, I love building companies. I love this. I went to law school and my parents were very sad that I didn't become a lawyer, but this is.
Well, you graduated.
I I definitely graduated, but this is way more fun than just being a lawyer because I
Right.
still get to actually be immersed. And I'm sure somebody will have regulatory questions here, but it's still very interesting sort of watching dealing with corporate law, employment law, regulatory law as well.
Well, I'm glad you are who doing well.
I am who doing well. The cool part is too that Charles doesn't really like tell me what to do. I'm pretty independent when I work, but we work really well together. Like he's more of the strategist on certain product and visionary stuff, and then I'm more of the execution implementer with my own ideas. Actually, yeah.
And yeah, it's the only way you can make it work, because if you're scaling up 700 people, 70 plus countries, dealing with multiple different business domains, you have to be able to delegate effectively. Speaking of which, about an effective person, with the recent ChatGPT Wolfram integration and past Cardano Wolfram partnership, what potential lies in combining Cardano Wolfram and ChatGPT? Well, Stephen Wolfram actually sent me an email saying, hey, ChatGPT is interesting. And by the way, I wrote this thing on it. Yeah, we wrote a 112-page booklet in like a month, just about ChatGPT. And he's quite interested. I'm quite interested in it. And so I'm definitely going to talk to Steve about potential integrations. One of the things that I'm looking at right now is ChatGPT and Marlowe, if they can be brought together. So GPT-4 and Marlowe for assisting developing Marlowe code for NFTs. So we have a small skunk works that Omer is spinning up, and it'll be part of the next PI planning. But that's going to be our first professional foray into GPT as a company. Now, on the Wolfram side, I've always viewed Wolfram as a much better chain link. I think it's basically the granddaddy of all oracles, because you have unlimited information, it's computable, and you have just this beautiful interface that even Google uses for a lot of their stuff. And if you had ChatGPT, you have an interpretation layer with the computation, and it can help you think in computation. And Wolfram is really starting to dig it. So if you could take that and make it more decentralized in terms of the access layer, then effectively you have the Oracle layer for the entire metaverse of blockchains, the multiverse of blockchains, the multi-chain verse. And that's something that's always very much excited me. So they have a great blockchain group at Wolfram. We've talked to them for years, and we've had a lot of great things we've done together. For example, we did an NFT drop with them, and we've had many discussions in the past about potentially doing something like an Oracle. And I think this is the right intersection point where potentially something could be done. So I need to talk to Steve, but there's an entry point there. The price of admission is I got to read his book. So I got to find some time for that. And we'll certainly talk about it. But he's a brilliant guy, and it's always fun to talk to him.
It's funny how business is timing too, right?
Yeah.
There's so many people we meet along the journey in the last 6 years even, and it's just about timing when we can actually do something with them or not. So timing's right.
Okay. Some interesting questions here.
I knew you were going to select that one.
Will Craig Wright be getting an Xmas present from you this year? What a douchebag he is. You know, it's funny because this is something that happens all the time in both crypto media and also the crypto podcasts. So they bring on a very inflammatory guest and they want to create some drama.
Yeah.
So the podcast host will ask the guest, what do you think of person XYZ? Vitalik, Charles Hoskinson, Joe Lubin, Gav, somebody. And of course, the inflammatory guest will be like, he's an asshole. And then what the podcaster will do is tweet that person that he's just talked about and said, oh my God, I can't believe he said this.
Yeah.
And then the crypto media will pick it up.
Yeah.
And then an article will literally be published within 24, 40 hours.
Yeah.
Charles Hoskinson and Craig Wright are feuding. I'm not feuding.
I feel like you haven't talked about him for quite a long time.
I know. Somebody interviewed Craig and asked, what do you think of Charles? Craig always says the same thing, that Charles is a scammer. But he says everybody's a scammer. And then that guy tweeted it at me, and then I tweeted back, I don't care. So I guess that's the crypto qualification for a feud these days. So then the podcaster reached out to me and he said, oh, you got to be on my show and talk about it, rebut Craig Wright. I said, it's the best case scenario is no one cares. The worst case scenario is he sues me because he sues everybody.
Yeah, that'd be dangerous.
It's such a nuisance dealing with this guy. It's like fighting somebody who's made out of molten tar. Even if you win the fight, you get molten tar all over your body. He definitely
is a waste. It's not going to add any value to anybody, even that's watching. About it's not going to advance it. You and Vitalik would be very interesting.
Yeah,
other people that have like substantial things to say. And he's not a gotcha kind of guy, Vitalik.
No, and there's plenty of productive ways to
Yeah.
engage with Vitalik, and I run into him from time to time. It's cordial always.
Yeah.
When you deal with somebody who refuses to acknowledge your existence or give you the benefit of the doubt, there's no productive way to get anything out of that. It says we've accomplished nothing. It's like, okay, we had extended UTXO, we created Plutus, we created Marlowe, we created the Ouroboros consensus model, we created NEPA-POWs, which makes Bitcoin considerably better, or we created Mithril, we created useful proof of work, 170 plus papers, and we've pioneered the usage of formal methods in the development of cryptocurrency. And a lot of the cool stuff, like we wrote one of the very first really detailed attack papers on peer-to-peer networking. And there was a recent huge hack on peer-to-peer with tons of Bitcoin derivative coins. We weren't affected. Why? Because we have a custom network stack that we came up with that's significantly better. So you could think that our tokenomics are wrong or we're scammers, this thing, but you can't deny the scientific innovation. And the fact that he does says that he doesn't understand it. You see, it's just that simple. And so why do you give that guy time of day? It's because he's got a cult. And you don't engage people with cults. You just move on. Just move on. Caravan moves on.
No Christmas present, in other words.
Oh, he'll get a Christmas present.
Okay.
Edinburgh Decentralization Index update.
What is the update? I don't even know what's going on with that.
So there's a lab at the University of Edinburgh. It has its own leadership. It has its own people, and graduate students and engineers and postdocs are working together on it. And at some point, they're going to publish the decentralization results, I think, for Bitcoin. So what's cool about it is it's completely independent of IO. So I don't manage it. I'm not in charge of it. It's not in our reporting system, so I don't get daily reports on it. And it tends to work on academic cycles. So if there's going to be an output, it's either going to be on a semester basis, like beginning, during, or towards the end of a semester, or it's going to be targeted towards a conference basis, of which case there are several prominent computer science conferences that publish crypto papers. So probably I'd expect, if I was guessing, that the first EDI measurement will be out during the summertime. And then what will happen is that the model will start gaining some traction, and then you'll start seeing a big expansion like the Cambridge Energy Index, where a lot more measurements occur, and then eventually it works its way through. Now, what I'd like to do once it's stabilized and people start really talking about it enough to criticize it, is eventually get a standards body to look into it, and like ANSI or ISO, or actually my personal favorite would be NIST. We even talked to NIST about this last year.
Yeah.
But you have to kind of get it primed, and there's dedicated people, so that's all they do. And it's a really interesting academic question of how do you measure decentralization, but I do believe it will be.
I'm so excited for this.
Yeah.
I really am.
It's not a minor concern.
No.
It's like one of the biggest, most important questions. In fact, did you see the Arbitrum thing with, yeah, if like, you vote, but then I guess your vote doesn't count, that's not really decentralized.
But that's going to be really, really exciting, the EDI. And is it going to be based on Agalos's paper? Because he has a decentralized governance paper. And I think he goes through.
No, he has an EDI paper.
Oh, but he has the 8 indices for what good governance is and good decentralized governance. So I assume he's going to take some of those features as well as criteria for measuring decentralization. But that's going to be so cool because once it's API'd into any blockchain, right, you're going to be able to actually measure in real time the anatomy of the blockchain and how decentralized it is according to those metrics, which will counteract any of these sort of arguments that, well, it's one indicia and measurement of, is it a security? Is it a commodity? Is it something else? So it's so important. But you're right, it's a non-directed grant, right? Like it's a grant that we've given. And we do this often. We give grants and they're non-directed.
And for it to be impartial, I can't have the ability to influence it because it's an academic body, it's an academic index. And unfortunately, that means they move at their own speed. And so it's not like I can say, well, 6 weeks, you'll have this thing. That's the decision of the lab director. But they're really excited about it. And I think it's something that benefits the entire industry as a whole.
Absolutely. Great if Messari wrote a paper or wrote
no one will ever write anything we do. We're a ghost chain. We don't exist.
One day, guys, I promise they're going to write nice things about us. Or anything, actually. Anything neutral even I will take. Messari included.
Oh, our first one from Lynette. You're a bullshit artist.
Which one? Me or you?
I don't know.
Or both.
And they never really tell you what the bullshit is. It's just bullshit.
I think they're talking about you. Thank you, Lynette.
Oh, well,
Very constructive.
my dog has more valid education than you. Okay.
Oh,
Oh, thank you.
that's nice.
I'm very glad that.
Aw. She's like a Laurentian person.
And your smart contracts don't work correctly, Charles.
Oh.
At least I have smart contracts, Lynette.
There's your smart contracts, Lynette. Our smart contracts, of course, always need work, and they're improving, and they're going to continuously improve.
Yeah, we're moving together.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much. We're
Oh my
both
God,
so
you're both
cute.
so cute. Aw, thanks, digital nomad.
I appreciate that. This is how I spend my Sundays.
This is how I spend my Sundays. Yeah.
We're fucked up people.
I just have an inquiring mind. I like to work. But yes, we have problems for sure.
Are you guys hiring any community management people? Ooh, I'll bet that one to Tam.
Internal to IO. I mean, I'm always looking for good community managers.
And I'm going to go grab the Breville. Be right back.
Sure. And also dev, the biggest role that we're hiring for right now is as a community type role is dev relations. I am actually looking for a dev relations lead. So a pretty senior role that can manage all of our DevRel. So Lynette's comments, wonderful comments about, our smart contracts. We need somebody to really continue to build our smart contract environments, and better and more documentation is needed. So that is in a way, a community role, obviously, right? Just very developer focused. And again, we're always looking for great community managers. Also the MBO, so the membership-based organization will have its own sort of community management aspects. I think the CF has community managers that they might be hiring as well. I know they have their ambassador program. I don't know if they have like a very small community management team. But yeah, we're always...
Hey, it's not the size of the community management that matters.
Thank you. Well, there's community managers, and then there's community moderators. Community managers also are one of my favorite roles, and it's such a great career path as well. Anything to do with ecosystem, because ecosystems are the future, folks. Ecosystem growth, product ecosystems, again, even open banking, they're all trying to figure out how to build ecosystems. So it's such a really cool and important role that is actually really hard to find good folks for those roles. So it's a great role, and just apply on our website. I don't know if we have an open role right now on our website. We might. So just apply directly if you'd like.
We're always looking for good people
who
understand community, because even if we don't have an open role, there's probably something.
Exactly.
To do. Are you working on some surprise products we're not aware of? Oh, fuck yeah. We got some next level shit, man. Hell yeah. Hell yeah, Batman.
Super secret products.
What about IOG ambassadors? I would love to live
cool
to a day.
Idea.
It would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great idea, and I would love to in the future. I see our company, I see the community as an extension of our company as well. So yeah, we're just so busy doing so many different things, but I would love to launch something like that in the future, for sure.
Charlito! Hey, family G, man! I got the Cholo Orca, man! Yeah. What do you think about Citibank report about crypto? I thought it was amazing.
I didn't read that.
Multi-trillion-dollar ecosystem they're talking about. By 2030. Yeah, they're following Broadridge as well.
Oh, they copied the Broadridge report?
No,
well, not copy, but it's influenced by.
Yeah, but they said CBDCs are going to be big and securities are going to be big. They weren't so good on crypto, but they were so good on blockchain, because that's what you have to say when you're in those circles. I think we can eat all that business on the midnight side and eat it with principles. So, yeah, absolutely. I'm real excited about our prospects and futures. It's great.
That sounds like something Citi would write. Yeah.
Very Citi.
Very Citi of them.
Very, very Citi.
Good coffee. I'm not going to be able to. What time is it?
You're not
going to be able to sleep. All of our folks are arriving tonight, guys.
Would you ever go on the Ron Paul report? It would be the greatest honor of my life if I got to be on the Ron Paul report.
He's your hero.
I worked for the guy.
I know you did.
And I got to tell you, he was the only boss, the best boss I'll ever have. Mm-hmm. Always will be my boss.
That's really cool. Uncle Ron.
Uncle Ron. He is the OG.
He really is. Yeah.
All right, what do we got going on here?
My ponytail does seem lopsided.
Midnight is so exciting. Yeah, and it gets
Yeah.
better. We got a CEO now.
He's amazing.
He's incredible. He's a beast.
So the whole team is coming actually tonight. That's who I was mentioning. So our midnight team's coming. Iran, Vinishri, she's our head of cryptography. Who else is coming? Our CTO is coming.
Is Alberto coming?
Alberto is coming.
Ah, muy bien.
Yeah.
Molto bene.
I was going to say, I think he's Italian.
He's very Italian.
Yeah, they're all coming, and they're coming for a couple-day workshop because there's a lot of considerations. It's actually a very complicated product too at its heart. There's several different things they have to take into consideration. I call them ecosystems. Like there's an identity ecosystem, a regulated ecosystem, and then there's the actual blockchain itself and identity. I already said that, and the privacy.
Tam, I've been asked by Mark
Charles
to inform you that you have a small ginger kitten sitting on your head. I'm not sure that you know about the small ginger kitten.
I usually don't wear my hair like this, but I wasn't expecting to do an AMA. But it does look like a ginger kitten, doesn't it? Yeah.
Oh, check this out.
Little Garfield.
I teach audio engineering and post-production at
oh my
Fanshawe
God, at
College
Fanshawe College.
in
What?
London. Come check out the Atmos Studios sometime.
Mike, I have been meaning to go there. So my mom, because I moved back to London, Ontario, after living everywhere else in the world. And my mother keeps telling me how great Fanshawe College's program is. And my mom actually used to work for Fanshawe College as well, her whole, growing up life before she was a mom. Yeah, send that to me. I would love to come and check it out. Check out the facilities.
Mike, that's her email. Send her an email.
You just shared my email.
Oh, come on.
No, everybody knows. Website. Yeah.
It's her email. It's on the website, so I can get away with this. So that's her work email. Send her an email. And if you are a creepy stalker, I'll murder you. But if you're a good guy, show her all around Fanshawe and how that program works.
I love Fanshawe College, though. That's awesome. And I love audio engineering. Like just being immersed in it would be great. So yeah, I will actually take you up on that offer.
K framework or AGDA for Plutus. Now, I think there's actual K support for Plutus because the semantics have been written in K. If not, I'll call Grigori and we'll get around to it because they did an earlier version of Plutus, and it would be nice for Plutus V2 to have K semantics for it. But ultimately, I think it'll probably be a dependently typed language that runs with it. So I wouldn't be surprised if there is an AGDA component.
Somebody said London is a shithole. Yeah, it's not my favorite place in the world. Just so you know. I just moved back to be with family, but it's improving. It's a college town.
Yeah, little by little.
Yeah, every city though and town is turning. It gets a little shitholey after a while, because keeping up with the infrastructure of any city or town, it's tricky. Good people though, good people in London, great people. Can you comment on no? Oh, when do you think the? How do you read so fast? Holy moly. Let's fly through them.
Charles, who do you think will attend your, quote, school of math since you have no real qualifications for it? Well, I'm sorry to say that if you feel that Carnegie Mellon University is not a qualified institution and that Jeremy Avogadro, professor at Carnegie Mellon University, is not a qualified person to lead the Hoskinson Center.
That's so mean.
And that the multiple people who hold PhDs in formal mathematics are not qualified people, well, then that's on you, man. I'm not really sure what a credential means in that respect. I mean, it's like an intersection between philosophy, computer science, and mathematics, and jointly all three departments have to run that institution. Yeah, there's some nasty people.
So rude.
Yeah, it's like, okay, you keep being you.
I know. You just have to sit like they have their own issues in their life. We wish you well.
We do wish you.
We really do. You're not good with numbers, are you?
No, I'm terrible.
It's terrible at math.
Somehow even though I'm the most incompetent, undereducated person, I've just stumbled upon all these accomplishments in life.
Yeah, it's just luck.
It's just pure luck. 170 research papers. That's just pure luck.
He's actually writing my coattails. That's really what he's doing.
Yeah, exactly. She actually did all the work, which was pure luck too, right?
That's also pure luck. Yeah,
it's the cult leader thing.
Yeah. I mean, we're not perfect.
Fucking prick.
Don't be mean. See, negative energy.
Yes.
He means he's He hopes you do well in life, and may you deal with your own issues.
Well, that's okay, Dang Wang.
Don't have hate. It's just toxic. I
Yeah.
know that sounds very.
We're just not going to pay
Wokey.
any attention, and then he's going to have small Wang energy. See, because the counselor's name was Dang Wang.
No.
Yeah.
There's also nothing wrong with that. Small Wang energy is okay. It's all in how you use it.
I mean, come on. How would Ford sell trucks if not for small Wang energy?
I thought it was Dodge.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah.
It
I'm
depends.
I'm a GMC gal.
If
so.
you're under 3, then it's a Dodge. If it's between 3 to 6, it's a Ford. If it's 6 or larger, you're on the GM side.
GM.
Yeah, I just pissed off so many people. Like, hey,
A fun fact in my family, we're not allowed to own Fords or Dodges. We're only allowed to own GMCs. My father has enforced this.
her father is a construction magnate up
Yeah.
in London. He's got a lot going on up there.
Yeah. He just likes GMCs.
Yeah, I fucking love the GMCs. I got a 1500, a 2500, and a 3500.
Yeah. Wow. You have that many?
Yeah, they're all ranch trucks.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, they're
got
good.
a lot floating around.
Yeah.
What do you think about Toyota, Charles? Lexuses are
Oh.
great. Not going to complain. GMC has beautiful front. Oh, front. Yeah, front.
Yeah.
Yeah. The fronts are
agree.
actually quite nice.
And Toyota, they're the ones who invented the assembly line. They got very creative very early
Yeah, the
on.
assembly line was invented by Ford.
Well, but they optimize some for
Yeah,
some
the,
part of
the Kanban system, the Toyota production system.
yes,
and all
the
that.
Kanban
They took it to the next level.
right. They made affordable and they entered the West as well. I have respect for that. It's hard to run a business, right?
It
So
is.
you can't shit on, anything really that has been even mildly successful because running a business is hard. Most fail.
From Jonathan
I have
Santos,
Fucked over.
rebuilt Dodge Ford.
I don't know what that means.
I've fucked over rebuilt Dodge Ford. Yeah, exactly. You rebuilt it and still doesn't work. You know what Ford stands for? Found on road dead. Actually, my first car was a Ford Taurus.
But there you go.
Yeah.
The truth shall set you free.
Exactly. And then I had a Ford Fusion. And so actually the family still has Fords.
See?
Dad has a Ford F-350.
See, you offended your own father.
It is found on road dead a lot. No,
My
just
first
kidding.
car was a Pontiac Sunfire.
I will not,
It was purple.
I will not, fault Ford for some of the work that they've done, but I will say what they've done in the Mustang is a crime against humanity. The hatchback electric Mustang. What have you done?
That just sounds like a bad idea.
This guy right here, the Taurus SHO was legit. That's what I had. 1998, black Ford Taurus SHO.
At least it was black.
Yeah. Let's see here. Run for president as a Republican? No.
What would you run as then?
4-door 2.
An independent?
I'm not running at all.
I mean, but if, like, as a thought experiment, if you were going to run,
If I'm not going to run, I don't want to be a
Okay.
politician. God, I hate them.
you hate politicians.
Every one of them.
There's got to be, well, you like Ron Paul.
Well, he's not a politician.
He was.
He's
He's
not.
not really, actually.
He's Dr. No.
He's not really, yeah.
Hell yeah.
He's the anti-politician.
He's my boy.
Oh.
Let's see here. Ford Fiesta. Will CZ make it? Yes. He's going to pay lots of fines and move on with life because that's how these things work.
Yeah. I hope so.
Tulsi Gabbard. I like her
she's great as well. Actually, she's excellent. Strong leader. And switch sides at a fundamental, like based on principles, and
Yeah, I tell you what.
and she's
man,
a real person. Like she actually went to
if I was DeSantis and I won the nomination, I'd pick Tulsi as
VP?
the VP. And that's like, could you imagine her debating Kamala Harris round 2?
yeah, Tulsi would win that battle.
That'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Why is the extended UTXO model better than the accounts model for blockchain? It comes down to parallelism, concurrency, and your ability to process off-chain transactions. And so when you're in an account style model, the whole system has to constantly update itself and keep track. It's almost like a global variable of what is going on for the system state. When you're in a UTXO style model, there is this notion of keeping track of the current UTXO, but you as the user don't have to know it. You just have to know your shard of it, the things relevant to your particular wallet. And so because of that, you start having this beautiful nature where things that happen on-chain, off-chain are isomorphic to each other. In other words, that basically things can go off for a while, lots of transactions can happen, and when they come back, you're not surprised by something changing on you that you didn't think was going to change without your permission or knowledge, so that you can make strong guarantees in the proofs, the math, and the engineering. So where that's relevant, rollups, really relevant when you talk about payment and state channels, and really relevant when you talk about sidechain transactions. So when we were designing Cardano's accounting model, we said we wanted something that is going to be very straightforward to shard and go parallel and be highly concurrent. And it was the model that we had to invent. Now, the downside is it's kind of like when you go from single core processors to multi-core processors, the way that you write code to take advantage of these capabilities is fundamentally different. So you can emulate an account style model in extended UTXO, but if you do it in a very naive way, you get to that one transaction per block situation that we ran into right when Alonzo came out. Now, since that time, it's been resolved. People have figured out how to write code properly, and they've really started to get a wonderful output. What's also really cool is that you can do many things in one transaction. Account, you do one thing per transaction. So with an account style model, you think in TPS. With an extended UTXO model, you think of TPT, transactions per transaction. And to just show you guys real quickly this.
It's an important distinction.
There's actually a lovely website. Let's make sure they're up. Oh, yeah, they are. Okay, I am so going to share my screen. You guys ready for this shit? Whoa!
Whoa.
There we go. Infinite. All right, extendedutxo.org.
I love that.
All right, and this is actually directly connected to the Cardano blockchain.
Huh. And
it'll come online here in just a second. And so basically this shows real-time blocks in the Cardano network. So you see each of those little blocks is actually a transaction. And all those outputs are different things that are happening at the same time. So if I highlight one of these, you see that that's a script for Plutus, and these are NFTs, and those are ADA being moved. So that's a single transaction. And look at all the different events that have occurred inside that transaction. Cool. So this is a real-time view of the Cardano network. And so Sandstone, congratulations, San, you made this block. And this block had a big fat script in it. And that right there is Charlie 3. That's an Oracle transaction. Apparently somebody moved an NFT. And then you got some ADA that moved around here. This one was 16 NFTs being dropped at the same time. And that's one transaction.
Great visuals. Whoever did this. Wonderful.
Yeah. So kudos to our guys at Extended UTXO. This is impossible to do in the accounts model. They don't have a representation like this. So what ends up happening is that you eventually develop capabilities to do more and more outputs. Ergo, for example, they've experimented with 5,000 outputs, and then each output can have dozens of events inside of it. Okay, lots of interesting things that are happening. So one transaction could be 5,000 transactions. And when you talk about rollups, well, you can start talking about taking all of these things, and instead of having them individually be ADA movements or NFT movements, or wow, there's a lot of scripts in this block, or scripts going on, you potentially could have all of these things be special purpose scripts and have tons of rollups off chain. So recursively, what ends up happening is the system gets an enormous scale, tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of actual transaction style events per minute. Look at that, HV ADA, HV men.
So it makes it easier because rollups essentially bundle transactions, right?
Yep.
To be validated back on chain. So why is this? Because they're already bundled in such a, why is this easier to bundle?
You could take all of these things that are inside the output and roll it up into a single output.
Right.
So all of this stuff here would be just one script.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
And then you can have a script representing. So each of these could be a script.
Oh,
It'll
that's
be a single
amazing.
script.
I see exactly what you're saying now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the cool thing about extended UTXO.
That visual is awesome.
Yeah.
So awesome.
And you can't do this with accounts. It's just not possible.
So why did they decide to go with the accounts? Did they do this analysis? Maybe like Steelman this one. Like, why did they decide?
Because the development model is significantly simpler.
And that's why.
UTXO programming is a lot harder to do. And it's kind of like functional programming versus imperative programming. So we're functional programming guys. So we're really used to this type of thinking. And Bitcoin also does this as well. By the way, this is the only way Bitcoin could do smart contracts is the way we do it. Okay. And we showed Bitcoin how to do it, but we've never once innovated, I guess. So yeah, I think it's just a great model, and it's built hand in glove for Hydra. It's built hand in glove for sidechain transactions, rollups, off-chain stuff, and it's very clear how you over time optimize the UTXO model. And Ergo's done some great work. We continue to do great work, and every version of Plutus and update of the UTXO, it'll get more efficient. So you can horizontally scale, and that you can do physically more transactions in a block. And that's what input endorsers is about.
Yeah.
And then you can vertically scale, where you actually use the transactions more efficiently. And then you can do off-chain scaling, where you can represent something on-chain that's a proof of many things that happen off-chain. And that's kind of what a roll-up Hydra style thing is doing.
Yeah.
And then you can have completely different models, which is what sidechains is about. And so those three things together, the horizontal, the vertical, off-chain, and side chains, these types of things are what really make the secret sauce great. It's just inevitable. Over time, you'll just get more and more speed, more and more capabilities. We've already gone from a very difficult development model when Alonzo first came out to actually a pretty functional model and a pretty functional ecosystem in about half the time it took Ethereum. So if you give us another year, 2 years, it's just going to be exponentially better. And there's going to be so much more capability that's inside the system. And it's a good follow-up question, which how much will Hydra improve TPS? That's really not the right question. The right question is, how do you use Hydra's middleware in your application so that you can do a lot of your expensive stuff off-chain, and then when it comes back to chain, you use less resources on-chain. So there's two directions you can do. You can either do it all on-chain, it makes a very bloated chain and a lot of computing power, or you can try to find a way to do a lot off-chain in an intelligent system and then batch it and bring it on-chain, which is where everybody's kind of going. And that's what Hydra is doing, is its middleware to provide that capability.
I think Matthias describes it as it's a state channel that now it's middleware. And then he also described it as a DApp, I think, in one of his blog posts.
Yeah. And if you build it like a DApp, then it's very easy to integrate and talks to everything.
Yeah.
All right, David, I'm about a third of the way through the Understanding Cardano book. Write down your thoughts, positive and negative. We are going to every year make this book better and better and better, because this is the Bible.
Yeah.
I can always tell Charles's mood is by his commentary when screen sharing. Wow.
Yeah.
Would you ever go on the Lex Friedman podcast again? Well, of course. Lex, our boy. Yeah, she was actually with me when I went on the.
Oh my gosh. There was a crew of us. Yeah. We sat there for 5 hours.
5 hours listening to
He would not take a bathroom break, and poor Lex really had to go to the bathroom, and so did we. But
I had to go too, but
I know you were just testing us all. Yeah, Lex is amazing. You should go back on for sure.
Yeah, Lex is
He's one of the most amazing people in the world. He's emotionally intelligent. That's why I like him, because he doesn't get emotional about issues. I mean, a little bit, but he can actually look at both sides of a debate and present it very intelligently. I love him.
So this is an interesting question. You forgot to mention nuclear fusion in your 5 pillars of the 21st century. And no, I don't think I did. So it's important to understand that we don't have an energy crisis. We just don't. If you look at just the coal reserves that we have, and we look at our capability to make coal work for the world, there's enough energy in coal for over 1,000 years across the entire world. You say, oh, but Charles, I've heard that coal is like the worst possible thing that we could do. Well, it depends. If you take a look at coal going to fly ash, you take a look at modern coal technology and our ability to sequester it, it's not a heavy lift to get to a point where coal would be a relatively acceptable energy source. And that fly ash can be put into geopolymer concrete, and you get a 90% reduction in the carbon output of concrete manufacturing, because you can completely replace Portland cement with fly ash, and you get tons of fly ash from coal power plants. So that's just one energy source, and there's a path to make that energy source incredibly environmentally friendly. And where you have abundance of geothermal and hydroelectric, what you can do is put carbon air capture there because you have such a large abundance, and you can offset all of the stuff that comes from coal. These other things that they claim, like radioactive substances coming from coal burning, well, it depends first your source of coal and how you treat the coal and the technology that you use, but it's no more so than bricks, and you have bricks in your wall. So that's just one example. Okay, then you have natural gas, and then you actually have next generation geothermals called EGS that exists. Okay, so none of these are nuclear, and they all produce enormous amounts of energy. And then you can also do other things that potentially could become base load, like you could create solar facilities in the desert and tidal power where and when that makes sense. And you could create a biofuel cycle that also works pretty well. So I don't think we have an energy problem at all. I think we have a policy problem where the people are, for some reason, destroying our power grid, and they're replacing it a base load, efficient, optimized power grid with an intermittent power grid with a very expensive energy storage situation, which we have yet to solve. So then they said, well, don't worry, we'll have fusion at some point. And there actually has been incredible progress with nuclear fusion. We have laser fusion, and they've National Ignition Facility, and they've reached ignition, and they've gotten to a point where they're energy positive. And that technology will continue to grow. And there's a really cool tech you can build there. We're starting to actually see real progress with the ITER project in France. And also Stellarators in Germany are getting very promising results. So in the 2030s, 2040s, 2050s, we're going to have an energy revolution where nuclear fusion is definitely going to transform things. That's great. And you also can use fourth generation nuclear power with this as well, because they're meltdown proof and they do some amazing things, and they also produce a lot. But ask yourself this, does the existence of excess energy production so transformative to the human race that everybody is now no longer human? No. All it does is it just makes what we have more sustainable and better, faster, cheaper, and it allows us potentially to be cleaner and live better lives. But it's not the case that the existence of this technology is now going to allow you to change the color of your skin just by thinking about it, or interface with a computer and learn a book in 5 seconds. Okay, extra energy is required when you become an interstellar species and you're doing really interesting big things. And yeah, we have an energy demands that we have to meet, but it's not the case that nuclear fusion is in that same category. When you look at the four horsemen, nanotechnology, synthetic biology, quantum computing, and AI, you're literally talking about technologies that, when they're put together, fundamentally transform our environment and fundamentally transform what it means to be human. Okay, so for example, one of the things that we're doing here is something called Attune, and I'd love for Tam to talk about it in just a second. But it's just basically a communication technique for people to better understand each other and have more empathy and be aware of why people are saying the things that they say, and connecting with them at a deeper level. So we don't have to deal with toxicity in the workplace, and we feel like we can build better relationships and connections with people. Now, you could spend the next 30 years deeply thinking about these communication topics to the extent that you move into John Gottman's bedroom and you go to bed every night with him, and you tuck him in, and you help him co-author the sequel to The Science of Trust. You get real good at it. Okay, now, as good as you can get, if you have the ability to have an implant that gives you the ability to real time feel the emotions, empathic, of the people around you, there's no way you can have a technique compared to that. And that's really what synthetic biology and nanotechnology and AI are effectively doing, is they're pushing us in a direction where you get new senses, new capabilities, new ways of thinking, higher order thinking, long time horizon thinking. Imagine if you could put yourself in a state where real-time passing is maybe just a few minutes or a few hours, but it's like Captain Picard in The Inner Light, where he lived an entire lifetime in 23 minutes or whatever. You potentially could do that with this technology. So if you want, for example, to understand the lived experience of an African American in the Deep South, the 1950s, you could just hallucinate for 20 minutes and be that person and live their life start to finish for 60 years in 23 minutes. I mean, literally, this is what this technology can do in its highest order. So what does that translate to? It's like, well, as much as you can do empathy training, the fact that you have that capability, that's going to be so radically transformative to the human race. And it's going to put us on a very different footing and very different level. And these are just primitive examples. I can't give you the real good stuff because I can't conceive of the real good stuff. Whereas the existence of this will give that to you.
Yeah, and I was watching an interview with Elon. Maybe he did it in the past 3 or 4 days, and that because somebody asked why he's so obsessed with off-planet stuff and AI and all of this, and he explained like Hitchhiker's Guide, and he the whole notion of what is the meaning of life and 42, and his point is, and these technologies combine, these 4 or 5, even blockchain, but you're saying 4, the 4 horsemen. Is that it's exactly like you just said, we don't even know what questions to even ask. So that's going to expand our question set, where we're going to have new notions of even the questions that we're supposed to ask, or the things we're supposed to take, that we're supposed to value even. So that's why it's so fundamentally life-changing.
Right.
And I agree with you. Like, I see where you're going with it, but I still think techniques like Attune, and I can't name all the acronyms, but part of it is understanding and empathy. It's basically just being attuned with somebody, and how you communicate with each other, just being more aware and understanding, listening, all those beautiful things. Those techniques or tool sets are important to collaborate in order to get to the bigger, broader questions with the 4 horsemen. In the meantime, though, they're still good tools. It's just the tool set is going to expand more and more, and we don't know what that's going to look like. And that's why I think a lot of people are feeling existential crises right now, or just unknown. Like, I think even before AI, they were, right? Yeah. But now I've seen a big change in people, even folks that I'm talking to. It's just changed the game so completely that's why you're seeing so many of these. Even Lex, he has like AI person after AI person talking about it. Even Daniel Schmottenberger, I was just watching, he's great too.
We had a great conversation with him too.
Yeah. He's good. He has he has a little bit of a different perspective than the other folks too, but pretty much in line. But yeah, it's going to change so many things. So I guess what we have to do is just, how do you stay calm during this all, and how do you absorb it, and who do you trust, and how does this affect? Most people just want to know how it's going to affect their day to day, notwithstanding their business, right?
Yeah.
And people are really scared. Like, people are probably not going to want to have children because they don't quite know. They're already like that with social media, and it's changing. Like, even social media has changed the nature of how we think and how we focus and interface with each other. So that's just the beginning. It's the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah. And it's just, and as I said, there's just no way to even know what the questions are, and Elon agrees, and other people do as well. So it's just so phenomenal what could be done. Also, these 4 things can be used to build unlimited energy. You could build a Dyson sphere with it. You could do all kinds of crazy stuff with it. And what it means to be human will be fundamentally transformed. What does race mean when you live in a world where you can change your skin color just by thinking about it? I read a paper the other day where they took human skin cells and they combined it with the camouflage cells that live in octopi. So an octopus, if you look at an octopus and a chameleon, they can actually change their skin color to match their environment.
Whoa.
So they found a way to actually hybridize a human skin cell and get a human skin cell to be able to change almost like an LCD, like your monitor can go blue and red and green.
That's crazy. We were talking about that with textiles, but like, you can actually do it with your actual skin now. Well, potentially.
And that's what synthetic bio and nanotech is basically going to do, is it's going to give you that capability. So you can go from white to black to red to yellow and purple, and any shade that you want, and people will do this at some point. So it's just such a vastly different world, and we're not ready for it. Going back to Attune, the concepts of things like awareness of bids and being able to turn towards them and being tolerant of them and understanding where a person's coming on and not reacting and not judging, and then having empathy for it.
Very good. That was the whole Attune.
That's the whole tune.
That's
These
good.
these concepts are 20th century, 21st century, early 21st
Yes.
century thinking. And the problem is that most of us are still running on 19th century or early 20th century software.
Yep.
So you're absolutely right. They're tremendously beneficial, and we need to do it. And that's why the absence of it is why we have so many toxic relationships
Otherwise, you
and
will
toxic
skip
workplaces.
steps. You're going to skip
Right.
steps. You're going to have the software of that, and then you're going to skip that step, and then you're going to be thrown into that world, and people are going to beyond have an existential crisis. It's just going to be beyond that if you don't even learn that intermittent step.
Yes. And the problem is that while we're trying to catch up with where we should be, we're exponentially growing, and the wisdom gap is broadening with the technology. So it's becoming a really huge issue. And actually, there's a great book called Life, I think 3.0 from Nick Bostrom that talks about the wisdom gap.
Oy.
Okay, let's keep going. What have we got here?
Tricky
Tricky
business.
Charles, are you familiar with over-unity technology? Numerous patents have been submitted over the decades, but get bought and shelved, confiscated under national security. That's called conspiracy theory. Okay, so in this podcast, we follow the laws of thermodynamics. Every time I see an over-unity device, like Orbo was one, and that was a really fun one from Storn, and they put it in the mall and all these things. You call up these guys and you say, well, we'd like to conduct an experiment to see if they work or not. Oh, no, we can't do that because government will get in the way. But where does the mystical energy come, the void energy come from? And they never answer it. So, yeah, I see them, I hear them, people bring them to me all the time, but never once have I seen a single person with an over-unity device willing to do something very simple, which is turn the device over to an independent lab to have the independent lab verify that it's generating electricity. You see, almost always what they do is they put a battery inside of them, and then it's running, and what you're doing is you're just slowly discharging the battery in the device. I would love to see an over-unity device with no battery and generate electricity. And then I put it in an independent lab, okay? And we can put it in a vacuum chamber and control for everything, and then it should be able to charge something if it's generating more electricity than being put into the system, and not be a parasitic load on a system. But they never do it. Why? Because government. Oh, they're coming for it. You can get patents for anything. Doesn't mean it works. Patent office doesn't look at it and they think to themselves, does this violate the laws of physics? No, they'll just give you the patent. There's way, way too many of those patents. So sorry. Salt battery is a game changer. Yeah, those magnesium antimony batteries that LMMC is making is just incredible. Charles, how do I work for your hospital?
You're not going to answer that?
Email Wooly.
I don't think you should give Wooly email.
Fly ash is radioactive. Slightly. Again, bricks are radioactive. No one complains about bricks. Look it up. Are clay bricks radioactive? Yeah, if you live in a brick house, you actually have a small amount of radiation hitting you every day.
That's what Alex tells me as well.
Is hybridized proof of work, proof of stake being actively developed? Or did it stop with the Minotaur paper? It is being actively developed, sir. This far, no further.
And will be implemented, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It will be.
Eventually. Maybe next year.
One of these days.
Soon.
Okay. This is a good one for Tam and for me.
Oh.
So favorite cigar, favorite Japanese whiskey.
Oh, favorite cigar. I don't really have a favorite cigar. Something light, skinny. I mean, Romeo y Julietas, I guess. I don't really have a favorite cigar though. Just nothing really, harsh and dark. Japanese whiskey is easy. That's an easy one. I love Hibiki whiskey. I love it. I don't drink a lot of it, but when I do, I drink Hibiki.
I don't always drink
I
Dos
don't.
Equis.
Yes, it's great.
Hibiki by far. Hibiki
So
Harmony
good.
is just the best drinking
So
whiskey you
smooth.
can buy. Arturo Fluente for the Hemingway short stories are the best cigars because they're just so easy to smoke in a single setting.
Yeah.
More importantly, though, how do you like your eggs?
I just made eggs tonight.
How'd you make them?
I actually boiled them.
Oh, hard-boiled eggs.
I hard boiled them because I was putting them in a salad, believe it or not.
And there you have it, kids. She is a hard-boiled.
I like mine
egg
over
person.
medium though. And scrambled. And over easy. Always. It's all good.
Oh, that's not true at all. The carnivore diet is nothing new. Look it up in the old book by Dr. Atkins, also known as the keto diet. That is not true. Carnivore is to keto as vegan is to vegetarian.
That's probably true.
Okay, it's the most extreme form of keto.
Yeah.
They don't eat any fiber. They don't eat any vegetables at
Nope.
all. They don't eat any of that stuff. If you're on a keto diet like Atkins, you still have some carbs, and usually slow carbs that have a low glycemic index.
And 30 grams, I think, a day.
Yeah, under 30 or 20, and
Somewhere in there.
it depends on the composition. So not all carbs are created equally.
Nope.
So if you're eating refined sugars versus eating a bunch of vegetables, it's going to have a different impact. Carnivore, they just eat meat, straight up
That's
meat.
it. Yep.
And so there you go.
No, they're very different.
We have a Greta problem. How dare you, sir?
I did like her comment though too. What's his name? That crazy toxic masculine guy.
Oh, Andrew Tate. I
Yeah,
think
Andrew
it is.
Tate. Her comment to
Andrew
Andrew Tate was good though. I will give her that. I don't think that was her comment though, because she took a day to respond. So I think it was her team, but it was still good. It's funny. Cheers.
Charles, how's off-chain secure? If it's used with on-chain and they work together with cryptography, you can make it quite secure. Signatures are off-chain. When you sign a transaction, you do it off-chain and you submit it. So it's a combination of crypto and a proper application of blockchain.
Pasta curves.
Pasta curves.
I just like saying pasta curves.
Hey, yeah, they're pretty cool curves, man.
Pasta curves.
Yeah, fuck
I
it.
thought it was named after the pasta, but it's not. It's a name.
Favorite steak?
Ooh. Ooh. What about you? I like prime rib. I
Well,
like dry aged steak.
yeah.
I like all kinds of steak.
So there's cut of meat and there's what you do to the meat. So, and there's the animal that the meat came from. So Wagyu,
Very good.
medium rare, is absolutely amazing. Can't have too much of it because it's so much fat. If you want a big thick steak, I really do like something cut like a porterhouse style, 30 ounce, 34 ounce slice, dry aged for about 35 to 45 days. It's quite good, and you dip it in salt. That pops the flavor
Bernaise.
for it.
I ruin a steak with Bernaise.
Well, that's why you have it
I
on
don't
the
tell
side,
the
and
yeah.
you
I
can
try
dip it.
to
Everybody has a
try to
there's
quietly
chimichurri,
ask for
there's
it.
Bernaise, there's
I love the Bernaise.
port wine reduction. You
Oh.
can do all kinds of crazy.
Yeah, but
you
Bernaise
go
is the
wild
way.
with it.
Yeah,
You go wild with it.
yeah,
Favorite steak is the favorite steak for you.
that's true.
He eats Wagyu with your hard-earned cash. Yes, that's exactly right. Every time I eat Wagyu, what I do is I go to my live streams to 750 people listening right now, and I take 10 cents out of all their pockets. They don't notice it, but I'm there like a fucking ninja, man. I am the Green Beret of money stealing. I sneak in like, just get in there, got the war paint on, all that shit. Take that dime out of your pocket. Yeah. Who are these fucking people?
Bless you.
Any news on the New Balance partnership? Well, that concluded
Oh my
a long
gosh.
time ago.
Yeah,
That's
that's
an
old.
oldie. Yeah, we did a pilot program with their innovation division, and we shipped a Tangent card with Cardano.
In the Kawhi Leonard shoe.
yeah,
Remember
the
that?
Kawhi Leonard shoe.
That was
and
cool.
I-
That was when he won he won it for us in Toronto.
yeah, you did
that
for
year.
you guys.
It was very cool. It was a good year, and then he got traded away.
Yeah. So that I wanted to expand it, but
Yeah.
unfortunately we weren't able to get that done. In fact, I think the people who were running it on the New Balance side spun out their own company, and they tried to go and do supply chain stuff,
They
but
did.
then crypto fell apart for a while.
Yeah.
Then it came back, and we weren't able to ride the second wave on it. But I love that deal. That was so cool.
It was a very good deal, actually.
We went to the opening of the shoe line at the store in Los Angeles, and we got to hand out shoes, and it had the Tangem card, and it was a tripartite deal. It was IO, Tangem, and New Balance.
And our team did a good job. We built an analytics framework for them as well to sort of track.
And the sales
provenance.
went up,
Yeah.
and that's what the argument we made to them.
No, it was a good little experiment. Trump indictment.
This one's a tough
Isn't he
one.
getting a rain today?
On Tuesday.
Oh, today's Sunday. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Gosh,
So
they're all blending the days.
he's flying out to New York
Oh, yeah,
on Tuesday.
Yes.
He's going to show up at 11 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
They're going to take him in and they're going to fingerprint him, take a mug shot. Apparently, he's not going to get handcuffed.
No.
The Secret Service negotiated hard with them in New York. So here's what happened. You got a guy who's the prosecutor in New York City who decided to take a case that the Federal Elections Commission and the federal government both passed on. That's a misdemeanor, and upgrade it to a felony. And
went from civil to criminal.
Well, it was criminal, it was a misdemeanor, but statutes of limitation already applied, so they had to upgrade it to a felony so that they could still charge, which was passed on by federal prosecutors. Put it before a grand jury, which 80% of the people in New York City are Democrats and hate Trump's guts, and I'd imagine 96% hate him because he lived there, because he's kind of a piece of shit. And get him indicted. Now, okay, so here's what's going to happen. It's a super fucking weak case, these 34 counts, whatever they are. He's going to go in, and he's now being politically persecuted. That's what it looks like. Now, whether you love him or hate him, what this does is actually makes him more powerful. He is today more likely to win the Republican nomination, and is today more likely to win the presidency as a result of this indictment than less, which is really fucked up. So if your end goal is to get him out of politics or out of the White House, you're moving the opposite direction. So why is the prosecutor doing this? Because whether he wins or loses, he's using it to bolster a political career to eventually be a senator or governor when Chuck Schumer retires, or he becomes, when there's a vacancy in the governor's mansion in New York. It is never a good idea to arrest former presidents who happen to be running for re-election when the opposition party is in power. It's never a good idea. It is horrific. And before you say, well, equal justice for everybody, we don't have equal justice. We've never had equal justice in this nation state. It's a fucking fantasy. You don't like the guy, so you're okay with it. But then when your guy does something wrong, you're totally okay with no charges being filed. The former president, Obama, murdered a U.S. citizen. His name's Anwar al-Awlaki. Look it up. Sitting at a barbecue with his son, and a drone flew by and dropped a bomb and killed them. No court was involved. There was no military operation. There was no active shooter issue here. It was just an ideologue who was sitting there and dropped a bomb. No one talks about it. We just turn the page. Presidents do horrible things all the time on our behalf or without our knowledge or consent. And if we're going to get into a game of looking for a crime a president's done and arresting that president and throwing them into jail because we don't like them politically or we want to curtail their political career, we have a term for that. It's called a dictatorship. It's banana republic. And you know what? It's never going to stop. Now, every single president here on forward will get indicted when they leave office, when the opposition party's in power. It'll be Biden with the Hunter Biden stuff. They'll find some dirt on it. You'll disagree with it. If you're on the left, you'll say it's all made up. If you're on the right, you'll say it's about time. It'll be Bill Clinton with the whole Epstein connection. They'll find something there. And or maybe the 500 things that he's had with sex crimes throughout the 40 years that he's in office. They'll find something there, a payoff. So it's okay to pay $500,000 for settling a sex allegation, and that it's not an influence of elections. They're literally using the same construction here for Trump. You know, they tried with John Edwards, by the way. It's the very guy who's the special prosecutor to put Trump into prison, Jack Smith. He was the guy who tried John Edwards and failed for the exact same crime. But I guess it's okay now. You know, it's just, and this is a reason why the federal prosecutors passed on it, because they understood that this is not a case that you're going to win. And it's going to make it look like the Justice Department is being used as a political cudgel to harm somebody. Now, this in no way says Trump is a good guy. This in no way says that you should vote for him. This in no way says that the things he said and did were legitimized and justified, and the 1,600 lawsuits that he's had against him somehow are all vindicated or something like that. No, it's entirely possible to dislike a scumbag, but then also agree that you shouldn't use the judicial branch of the US government to politically persecute a scumbag and to further legitimize his conspiracies. And it's just no good for anybody, and it's just going to hurt the nation and drag us down. Trump is like The Simpsons, the Billboard episode in Treehouse of Horror, where they said, how do we defeat all these advertisements? And they had the little jingle, and they say, just don't look, just don't look. All you got to do to kill Trump is stop paying attention to him. If you pay attention to him, he gets more powerful. If you engage with him, like Craig Wright or these other things, they get more powerful. They get more relevant.
And this is going to be the story now for the next
2 years.
We're going to put so much energy into it. They're even saying his mugshot is going to replace Che Guevara, and he's going to be like put on. They're going to release it, his administration, and it's going to become the symbol of anti.
And at the end of the day, did you get anything? You say, I just want equal justice. There is no justice at this level.
They didn't think this
well,
through.
This is
Maybe they did think
great example of where what's good for the nation is not necessarily what's good for a prosecutor.
Right.
And it actually highlights how much prosecutorial misconduct happens in this nation. 54% of the felonies in New York City have been downgraded to misdemeanors, violent felonies, rapes, burglaries, assaults. It's now catch and release for more than half the criminals there. So then we say we equal justice, we have to start applying justice. So bad things that are happening that are making the city really hard to live in, we're not going to prosecute that. But then crimes that happened in 2016 that have no bearing or relevance to anyone's life or property or liberty, we're going to drag them out years later and form a grand jury and have the biggest political theater in New York history, U.S. history, for a court case and distract everything. Do you understand the resources prosecuting this case is going to take? Dozens of people from his office are going to have to fight tooth and nail 24/7 because Trump's a billionaire. And he has the entire Republican Party unified to the extent the Florida governor even refuses to extradite him.
Yeah.
So he has to voluntarily surrender. They can't actually send marshals down to grab him.
Yeah.
And so what does that mean? It means that all those people are going to be locked onto this case for 2 years, and they're not prosecuting burglaries and murders and rapes. Is it really worth it to get a loss, an L? Is your politics so fucked up and you just want to see the mugshots so bad because you hate the guy? Here's what you do. The worst pain in the world for Trump is irrelevance. All you have to do is just not pay attention
for any
to him
narcissist
and pretend he doesn't exist. And that's a hell 10 times worse than a
narcissism
prison
101,
cell.
actually. Stop paying attention.
Yes.
Stop giving them fuel for their
100%. And just stop paying attention. That's the worst crime, the worst fate for him. And nobody attending his rallies, nobody giving him money. They're going to attend his rallies. They're going to give him money, and he's going to get more powerful as a result of this indictment, not less powerful. And it hurts the nation. But that's just the world we live in now. We arrest ex-presidents. Okay. By the way, did we arrest George W. Bush for Iraq? There were people who actually thought about trying him for war crimes with the ICC. Are we going to have a special prosecutor now look into that? What about Biden with the drone strike in Afghanistan that killed all those children when we pulled out? That's a war crime. Are we going to prosecute him for that? Are we going to look into all the money flows into Ukraine or the Nord Stream pipeline, where the U.S. government says they may sort of didn't do it, but perhaps did it, but it's a good thing that they did it? One of the largest environmental catastrophes in European history caused by U.S. Special Forces working with the Scandinavians, the blow up a Russian pipeline. Are we going to try him for that? That's destruction of private property. It's sabotage of a pipeline, a massive environmental catastrophe. So are we going to charge him for that? No. But Orange Man bad. So we should just do that and pervert the entire justice system. Here's the thing. Also, if Trump gets him back into power, do you understand the consequences of giving the people in power the ability to do this? There will be a purge in the U.S. government at a scale you've never seen before. And the FBI, the intelligence agencies, the Department of Justice will be weaponized, and every single person on the left, every single journalist on the left will be punished. And every prosecutor at the state level in red states will feel empowered to go after Joe Biden, Chuck Schumer, and Nancy Pelosi, and everybody else. Why not? It's open season now, right? We have no political norms. Do you so feel that the people who make decisions on the left are so blameless and they've never done anything wrong? FTX is a great example. Yeah, $1 billion in donations, mostly to the left. Man, let's follow that. Maybe the BLM riots. Let's look into that. See what happened there. There's going to be a lot of stones that when you turn them over are very uncomfortable and inconvenient, and we let them go because they're political. And now apparently political crimes are crimes. So it's open season. That's what you want. That's the America you want. That's how you get a civil war. That's how you get irreparable damage. So, and what do you gain out of it? Equal justice? No, he'll be acquitted, guys. You're fucking deluding yourself if you think that a crime that's this weak, that has so many loopholes and these types of things, and that the Federal Election Commission didn't want to touch, is going to somehow get this down. The reason why Jack Smith, a war crimes prosecutor, was put on the Trump case is that it has to be so fucking good and rock solid and beyond reproach, and at so many different angles that nobody can disagree. And even the Republican Party has to disagree, or they have to pass. That's the only standard. You can't have a weak case because he'll win. And meanwhile, all those resources are gone. 2 years of effort are gone. And you've accomplished nothing. But does the prosecutor care? No, because he gets to say when he runs for governor or when Chuck Schumer retires for his Senate seat, I was the guy who got Trump arrested and got his mugshot. And he'll get elected on it. That's the America that we're moving towards. Great. Fuck the nation. And by the way, I'm not a Trump supporter.
No, you're not. He's never been a Trump supporter, actually. You never have. You're just arguing on process and continuity and consistency. I have to go. We have people at our house, so I gotta go.
Okay. Well, let's end on a high point, huh?
Yeah, that was yeah, let's end on something positive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. You can always move to Canada.
Yeah. It took all your guns away. That's a big problem for me. I'm a rancher. I feel scared. I got mountain lions. They try to eat me.
My dad has guns. He lives on our property as well.
Don't talk about that. They'll break his door down. Take him out.
Do.
LOL with Justin.
Yeah. You would not get along with Justin.
Justin Trudeau.
Mm-hmm. Have a great night, guys. Pool. One more.
Tamara, tell us a bedtime story.
Once upon a time, there was this beautiful project called Cardano. And in Cardano, we stood for integrity. We stood for doing the right thing. We stood for consistency and respect. And we all listened to each other. We debated, and we all had open debates, which was really, really healthy. And that's the only thing that's actually going to get us through anything, is to be able to talk about these things. A lot of companies won't talk about these things, or people that are part of the companies. Now, Charles's views are not the views of everybody in our company or our ecosystem. That's my disclaimer as well. But I think it's important that we share these things and these views. And I think that's what's going to make us as an ecosystem so much stronger. So I think you can sleep well with knowing that we're all in good company with each other. And it's just an honor to be here. So thank you very much for having me. And sleep well.
We always love having you on. And one more thing.
Wait, one more thing.
Speaking of dreams and sleep. So this is something we're going to try out here. It's actually,
what is that?
It's a substance called Dream Lodge, and it's a combination of mugwort and a bunch of other things.
Oh.
And it's got red raspberry, mugwort, melon, lavender. It's got marshmallow, tarragon, labella, passion flower, valerian root, wormwood, and hops, all in this little thing.
Valerian. I have some of the stuff at home.
So what I've been told, I haven't tried it yet, is if you smoke this stuff, it gives you the craziest fucking dreams.
Mine's a tea.
No effect at all while you're awake, but apparently mugwort gives you crazy dreams.
Yes, I've heard that.
So it's nice to bookend it. We started with the Roxiva, which is an audio and visual entrainment system. And we ended with mugwort.
Are we going to be smoking that right now? When we...
Yeah, why not? Right?
No.
But
I actually recommend that in tea form. It actually would probably make an okay tea.
So the point is, though, that the world is a pretty magical place. We get so passionate about politics, and we get so passionate about a lot of these topics like the Securities Exchange Commission or the Choke Point 2.0 or the war in Ukraine and Russia and or conflict. And we should, because they're important and they impact our lives and they hurt people and we feel the injustices and we feel the problems. But the counterpoint to that is there's all this magic around us. And I think the bigger evil is that the way things operate prevents you from seeing that magic. You become blind to it. When you're a kid, you have it. That's why it's so much fun to hang out with young kids. You know, everything's
I love it.
Oh, wow, so cool. Look at that frog and look at that cat and look at that tree. There's caterpillars in it. You're like, where the fuck do these kids have this energy? Why? Because the default mode network in their brain is operating with a fresh set of eyes.
Yeah.
And as a result of that neural state, they're able to find wonder in the simplest of things. The real problem with being an adult is that gets shut off, and then you just become bitter and cynical and hardened. And it becomes harder and harder every day to find joy, wonder, and magic in the world. Mm. And so one of the lifelong pursuits that I've had is trying to find devices and techniques and ways of thinking and substances and, philosophies that help you unlock that magic again and realize that the world is indeed a really incredibly beautiful and special place. If people often ask, like, what is the mission of IOG and what we do as a company, I say, well, as we move from Cardano being the center point to just one of the branches of IOG, the real core mission and vision of it is a company that can unlock the magic of the world. And so I really thank each and every one of you for being part of that and teaching me so much. One of the things is, as I show these things off, you send emails to me. In fact, I've discovered so many things as a result of this community. You guys are incredible, and we've had so many cool conversations offline and online. And I hope that continues, and that continues to scale. That's why I keep doing what I do, and this is why I keep enjoying it. Now, yeah, from time to time, I get really pissed off about things. But what I have found as I've gotten older and I've started to really dig deeper is that don't sweat the small stuff. It's all going to be okay. So that's my bedtime story. And
that's nice.
Thank you all for listening. We've had a wonderful
everybody.
time. This was a great AMA, and you're a wonderful audience.
You
Love
really
all
are.
of you. Cheers.